Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. With that, we move on to the final session, which is titled The Digitalization Journey, Scaling Innovation to Build a Truly Digital Bank. We've already had two stalwarts in Moha Sengupta and Anubrata Biswas who shared their views and insights on this subject. And right now we have a bright mind in Mr. Manish Shah, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Godrej Housing Finance, who will share his insights in a conversation with Sanjay Doshi, Partner and Head, Financial Services Advisory, KPMG. I'm looking forward to this session. Sanjay, over to you.
Thank you for the introduction, and hi Manish. I hope you are doing well.
Hey Sanjay. Yep, doing well. Great to be here.
Absolutely, and Manish, a lot of things happening in the industry. Post-COVID, the entire digital wave has really, taken across the world, especially in India, and this is across sectors, across segments. The entire push towards transformation, whether it's on the business model side, whether it's on the operating process side, it's really coming up quite well, right? I think completely following up with the entire monetization thing. So it's a different world we are getting into, and would really like to hear your thoughts on, what is really happening over here. So, if I have to start with thinking about, as a leader, when you are looking various segments of the financial services, whether it's on the banking, lending, NBFC side, how do you think, or what is the vision you think is going to be from an innovative digital transformation, and how the future of financial system is going to be?
Right. So Sanjay, let me try and take that in a couple of parts, right? And let me try and restrict this to and try and bring in some examples that give you a good for a better flavor. I think when we were all hit in with the first wave, I think a lot of what we had to do, how we had to respond, was first order reactions. Can you digitize processes? Things that you needed to do in person, could you do it digitally? I mean, what we're doing right now became sort of a new way of working, and there was a certain amount of change that brought about. A lot of discussion is spent around first order changes, right? Which is just, you used to do processes in person, now you do it digital. You see a lot of statistics in, X percentage growth in how many of these transactions or how many of these interactions were taken online. While all of that's, there, and obviously, I think there will also be long-term behavior change long after this is over. I think from a second order perspective, it's done things for us that we are very well advised to, step on and take forward. And let me take two examples, right, by what I mean by second order. It's allowed for core innovation, right? And it's allowed for really, so for example, let's take a loan product, for example, right? It's allowed for innovation, core innovation in a place like product, the construct itself. Let's take an example. Most people who buy homes in the country today, buy homes or, pay money down for an under construction apartment. And there is a perennial challenge in the interim cash flow management. While I book a home somewhere, I currently live somewhere else, I service an EMI or rent, and I have to make payments. What very often this, how industry, the developers, financiers would come together to be the home buyer would be one-on-one adjustments, deals. What sort of, first order leading to second order, what it allowed us to do is it allowed us to create an at-scale offering called Design Your EMI, where systemically you can decide how much you want to start with, how much you want to scale up. It's not dependent on three people coming together and structuring a transaction. You can do it digitally, you don't have to meet, you can do it at scale, and you can manage the whole, total cost of ownership and cash flow and set the balance right for yourself. Not just at the start, you can also change. Another example of this is on product delivery. We were all hesitant, all practitioners in this business, in saying, yes, you can do some things digitally, some others you can't. Once the second wave hit, it forced us to saying, work from home is fine, but effectively deliver from home is quite different. In our world, we said, can you disburse from home? It's fine. All of us know how to do Zoom calls, but can you actually do a loan from home? That now meant that you will never meet the customer. So on the product delivery side, it spurred innovation, right? So for example, we didn't think that an e-signed loan agreement, for instance, which is this, typical 40, 50 signature process, must be done in person. But we never, as a business, as a company, we didn't need to push the envelope on that. When the second wave hit, we said the challenge is disbursed from home. The person must be able to buy the home sitting at home. And that led to product delivery innovations like if there is a document, that can be couriered. If there is an agreement, that can be signed digitally. But business and work should not stop. So I think these are, two examples to saying from a second order perspective. Now, hopefully there will be no COVID 4.0, but we are not going to change. And we're hoping that from a customer acceptance perspective, neither of this thinking, whether it's how we design products nor how we deliver them, I don't think we're going to change or go back to the old ways. This is here to stay. So I think if there is any such thing as good coming out of a pandemic, these would be examples of it.
Absolutely. Think about it, right? Initially, if I had to get a home loan, I would have to walk into a branch of a bank or a housing finance company. Correct. And the entire customer experience was so much in person. Who is the person sitting on the other side of the table? What is the kind of service you're getting? Correct. Of course, the entire physical documents, you said, the number of pages we had to sign. But digital is really changing things a lot. So from there, if you really have to think about, and many organizations are really walking down this path of digital, right? Will everyone be successful, or will everyone be able to provide the same kind of service or customer experience, right? So from those areas, what do you think what are the three, if I have to say top three, essential components for a successful digital transformation?
So I think like all transformations or all changes, I think it first starts with leadership buy-in. One is just how much does it really matter to you? And are you able to walk the talk first? I mean, like a lot of our organizations, that are led by 40-somethings, the challenge begins with guys like you and me. The problem is not the 20-somethings. They are already digital native. They want to know if we walk the talk. Let's take a classic example, right? You have workflows that you can go into the system and look at progress. But how often have we heard a leadership discussion saying, yeah, that workflow we can check later. Why don't you just summarize in an email? Or why don't you now give me 2 slides on progress? Now, it starts from there, right? Saying, are we really tech? Even for us, right? We are a born in the cloud, open API, tech-first organization. But even for us, it's still some ways to go in saying truly tech-first and digital from the inside. We're getting better. I think we're, the newer age companies have it a lot better because of, legacy systems and migrations not being there. But so I think first thing's leadership buy-in. Second, and which is a continuous learning journey for us, is really solving the larger problems in descending order. I think one of the challenges for us is to get carried away and mistaking, being tech first or mistaking digital for being cool. And you see lots of instances of tech for tech's sake. So if we've learned anything from industries like payments, for example, if you look at how UPI is taken over, it's because the tech works and the benefit is felt all around. So if it improves the customer experience, if it clearly improves frontline productivity, it will work, it will get adopted. However, if it's just for the sake of being tech, take for example, when we underwrite loans, if the documents are available digitally, it works beautifully to go end-to-end digitally when the customer prefers that, right? If you're the customer and you're okay with your bank statement being pulled online, your ITRs being pulled online. However, if you're happier just giving us a stack of paper, we thought about this and said, why don't we scan all of these stacks of paper and then we can continue our digital process? Only to find that it takes so much time to scan the whole file. Why don't you just move the file rather than scan it all and then review the same papers, a digital version of it? So I think tech for tech's sake is dangerous. Solving it in descending order is super important. And I think last but not the least is if we really wanted to take off, then attention to all of the last mile processes. Now, and none of us have solved it entirely. We certainly haven't. But, for example, you want to move absolutely end to end, but the property papers, are not yet available digitally. There is a registrar office. And I think the challenges all of us face in different industries is, if you were earlier at a score of 25 on 100, it's not good enough to move to 50 or even 75. Because whether you're 25, 50 or 75 in terms of percentages of it being, digitally available, that last mile breaks the camel's back, right? So how close to 100 can you get? In some businesses, it's easier to get absolutely end-to-end. Payments is a great example. In others, it's not so easy. So here's a couple of things that I'd put. And the only other thing I'd add is, if I'm allowed a fourth point, is I think to sort of put a ribbon on all of this is really putting tech at the core of how you do things. Any problem statements looked at saying, why does this problem need to be solved? And are we looking to solve it at scale? So if this is a Sanjay problem, can we as an organization, can it get into our DNA that there are hundreds and thousands of people who have a problem like, problems like the one Sanjay is having? And can we solve for it at the core? So for instance, build smarter scorecards. That takes away from saying, give me 3 more pieces of paper, then I will be able to evaluate or make a better credit decision. Can we basically solve for all of these components at the core? Then when we put it together, I think the problem of adoption has been overstated. It will get adopted. We're seeing that. I'm sure all of us are seeing it in our, in our different spheres. That if it solves real problems from the core and it's scalable, it will get adopted.
Absolutely. And just to add there, the entire alternate data or alternate ways of getting data is also becoming very critical and important within the digital ecosystem. But just over there, and I completely agree with your point on the 75%. Forget 75. Even if you're 90% there, that last mile of 10% can actually be the breaker of what you call quality digital.
Correct.
It's easier to do it in an unsecured loan kind of an environment, personal loans or pure non-collateral kind of loans. What has been your experience, especially given it's yours is more of a collateralized journey, and the documentation is there. You did share something about it, but how are you really coming around?
Actually, not a lot. And in that sense, sort of, COVID 1.0 and 2.0 especially have really helped in moving this along. So you're right in saying that if you think about these journeys were actually never built to be, built around not meeting. In fact, the whole home buying journey, the financing of it is built around assumptions that people visit the property of choice multiple times, and therefore you will get enough opportunities to meet, collect documents. So it's helped that everyone's needed for this to be solved. So I'm not taking away from the fact that if you have fewer hands-offs, if you don't have a property to register, if it's a card or a payment, it's obviously easier to remove all forms of friction. But there's been quite a lot of work done on removing friction, even in collateralized journeys. So for instance, how the products of 3 parts, right? Visiting to see the home. Very often that's now, you visit, or as a customer visits less often. Speaking of our experience on specifically the loan, I think chunks or components of the, things that cause the most friction, you've been able to ease out. So, how you choose your product, even if you want to play around with it, that we've taken away human intervention, or at least in-person meeting, and you can do it on the system, you can do it digitally, you can do it remote. Product delivery, so much of the document collecting, signing used to be an event or a reason to meet on its own. We've been able to remove that. Even on the documentation, right? Especially with developer partners where there's a good relationship, you can always do it in a manner that it doesn't slow down the process. So for example, Sanjay is borrowing from us right now. The decisioning if we know the property that you're buying, the decisioning doesn't need that particular document. So Sanjay wants two things, right? One is you want certainty. Are you going to do this transaction or not? What price, EMI, all of that. All of the underwriting, all of the decisioning can be done without, let's say, the last mile of the registration. That execution of it, still, there is the physical leg. Someday, who knows, if there's opportunities to digitize that and take, that online as well and get the lien marked online, that would be, phenomenal. But I think even from where we were a year and a half ago to where we are today, we've come a long way. And I think we're much closer. If you took a scale of 0 to 100, you're much closer to 100 than you were to 0 when you started out.
Absolutely. When you're talking about the various essential components, and you did mention about it has to start from the top. It has to start from the senior leadership. But even the entire people part becomes very important. It's a transformation. It's a change. How are you seeing this change in terms of people embracing digital? One is on the customer side, but more importantly, on the people side within the organization.
I think I go back to the same point I was making earlier. It's very, very important for the real problems to be addressed. And when you see those being addressed, people in the team, those directly and indirectly impacted, immediately take to it. And I think, and I guess we have the benefit of being a new organization. Most people are new. We are a 2-year-old setup. What we found is when, as soon as the impact of it's seen, that adoption is in order of magnitude many times faster. So, let's take the non-customer side that you mentioned. We used to have this process, which is this CERSAI submission, which was highly manual. It took like 20-30 minutes per customer record. And, if you're doing a double digit, in a day, and there is not that much value add. We got a bot in to automate it. And that entire submission, whether it's 5 customers or 50 customers or 100 customers for the day, happens in a matter of minutes. And it doesn't need, the drudgery of doing the same thing over and over. Now, not only is there adoption, there is a celebration around, something like this happening. Right. And you immediately have more teams looking for problems to solve like this, saying, hey, hang on a minute, if you can automate this via a bot, then why can't that, be done by a chatbot? Why can't this be done, in a batch process that just happens on its own and gets submitted? So many things around regulatory compliance, so much around automation. We're currently working on how you automate tranche disbursements. If the customer is okay, if it's per plan, why must anybody get involved to reauthorize? Why can't sort of, at least in our maker checker system of things, why can't the whole maker side of it be automated and then have limited supervisory oversight on just the checker side of things? So we're definitely seeing that as the impact is seen, felt in one part of the organization, there is growing excitement in wanting to adopt and get better, the other parts. And it feeds off each other, right? You make an improvement somewhere, we celebrate something there, and you move with the times. I'll give you another example where, it's been the bane of our business, when you've got all of these documents that are needed to A, prove identity, B, prove where you live. And, our sort of professional upbringing has been a certain set of how you establish where you currently live. So much has changed since that, the importance of what an MTNL bill used to be 20 years ago versus what it is today. And it just takes someone saying, look, there are far better digital options. The electricity service providers have stepped up their game. This is what we can do there. You've got people who deliver to your home far more often, right? The Amazons and the Swiggy Zomatos of the world. There are opportunities to look at those if the problem you're trying to solve is to, be sure that this is where Sanjay indeed lives. So I think there's so many solutions that people are seeing being implemented and improving their lives, that I don't think adoption, as we've understood it historically, is going to be that much of a challenge. And I'm very excited about the speed at which this is moving.
Absolutely. I think, Manish, we are all excited about it. Not only the speed, but the effectiveness and efficiency of it as well.
Correct.
I think it's really playing out quite well, turning out quite well. The good part is it's not only one segment of the financial services ecosystem which is adopting it. It's the entire ecosystem which is adopting it, whether we talk about public banks, private banks, insurance companies, NBFCs. Now the new age players like neobanks coming in with their solutions. So absolutely, all your points were quite insightful. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate.
Thanks so much, Sanjay. Great talking to you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was Manish Shah, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Godrej Housing Finance, in conversation with Sanjay Doshi on his views, his insights, and his experiences on the digitalization journey, scaling innovation to build a truly digital bank. Some very, very cutting-edge insights that were shared there. Thank you, Manish, for joining us. And we wish you and Godrej Housing Finance the very best going forward. Well, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we conclude the CXO's boardroom track of the Economic Times Digital Banking Summit, this being the second edition. On behalf of the Economic Times, I would like to thank the esteemed speakers, members of the Fireside Chat, panel discussion, and their respective moderators for joining us at this summit and for sharing their insights with us. I'm sure all of us are leaving with some important and implementable takeaways. I'd like to once again thank our partners for this summit. Presenting partner Kyndryl, co-powered by partners Indusface, Exotel, and Dell Technologies. Cloud partner Amazon Internet Services. Platinum partners NetApp, Redington, and Databricks. Gold partners Snowflake, Madhyam, powered by Biz2XR. Resultix, Nugent Software, and Tech Data. Associate partners Talisma and SUSE. Supporting association Finance Industry Development Council. Media partner CIO Review India. Knowledge partner ET Insights, and this was brought to you by ET Unwired. Last but not least, a big thank you to all of you for joining us today, and we look forward to your participation in more such summits in future. Do attend the sessions that are still in progress by clicking on the plenary session tab on your screen. Enjoy the rest of the day. Stay safe.